Right, good evening. Hopefully we are live. So second week actually doing it on YouTube, so hopefully it all works fine. I haven't touched anything since last week, so it should work. So a couple of things. Obviously, just to start off, I said it is evening, yes. I don't know why your name is showing up as sort of black though, because that's not what it's set on. Like, what the hell? Let me try something. Hold on. It doesn't seem to be very impressed with what I'm trying to achieve here. Okay. It's still... what? Right, I don't know what's going on. As long as you can see it, it's going to be very awkward for people to see afterwards. Hello. Am I going to talk about the recent ret changes? No, that's for weekend stuff. And also, there is a reason, just on the ret thing, there is a reason why I didn't talk about them at the weekend. I could have talked about them at the weekend instead of inflicted a load of maths on people, which people didn't like one bit. And that is because there's other things. Because people think because Cephas actually wrote a post saying what's coming, that's what's coming. But there's other things as well that are a little bit up in the air. I'm hoping that there'll be some headway made. So on this Saturday, I will talk about the changes that have been announced as well as the changes that haven't been announced yet. And I'm just sort of going to hope a few of them will have been firmed up by then, but they may not have been. But I don't do ret stuff in this one anyway. How many more weeks until Cutting Edge ends? Well, let us have a look. Probably about 4. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, so basically, you won't be able to... in North America, the 17th is when... I'm assuming it's just going to go with the reset. Of course it will. So it'll be the 17th in North America and the 18th in Europe. And I don't know if you're Asian based. I don't know. Sorry. But whatever the reset of that week is, Tuesday the 17th of July is when the pre-patch. At that point, Cutting Edge is no longer obtainable. So tuning earlier doesn't autoplay when it actually starts, does it not? I haven't touched anything. I promise I've touched nothing at all. It always says before the next raid tier starts, but they do tend to not allow Cutting Edge once the pre-patch goes live, simply because everything changes, and the upshot of those changes tends to be that the whole thing becomes a lot easier. So, no, I'm afraid it will be the pre-patch. I mean, maybe they'll change it this time, but I really don't think they will. So what was I going to say? Stuff. No, I was thinking that because last week they said that 32-bit operating systems are not going to be suitable for running the game from the 1st. Well, no, what they didn't say from the 1st of July. What they said was make sure you've got a 64-bit operating system by the 1st of July. But then I was told that the pre-patch is going live on the 17th. So, So that's when we'd expect. That's 4 weeks before the expansion goes live. That's within expectations. How do I feel about the state of beta compared to how it was in previous expansions? It's very difficult to say in previous expansions, but I'm in a unique position to be able to say how it's going compared to Legion, and it's in pretty much the same place as Legion. The reason I can know for Legion, because otherwise I'd have to be going from memory, which is not very good, is because during Legion Alpha and Beta, I was doing videos. So all I have to do is add 2 weeks on, because Legion came out in the year 2 weeks later than it's coming out this time. So if I wanted to know what was happening in the Legion beta around about this time, I would just have to look up a video on, say, the 26th of June 2016 that I did, or round about that day. And whatever I was talking about then, it's like, well, yeah, the similar things were happening in Legion as well. So I'm not going to say that means things are running to schedule, because I don't think everything in Legion beta ran to schedule. And we know that there's a lot of class stuff that they've had to do more work on classes than they originally bargained for. Because you've got to bear in mind, in January, when Ian Hazacostas did his first BFA Q&A, after BlizzCon, of course, he said, look, there's these classes and specs are going to need some work on them, and it included a few things. Can't remember now. One of them was a type of warlock. I forget the rest. He said, these are going to need some work on them, but the rest are fine. He says, yeah, we're just going to take the Azeroth traits, so the artifact traits away from you. It's all basically fine. We're just going to tune it, and it'll be sorted. And then within a few weeks of that, they realised, no, it's not going to be fine. We're actually going to have to do something significant for every single class and spec, or at least most of them. And so that's been a lot of extra work for them to do. And obviously when you give a team that's already got a deadline a lot of extra work to do, it means one of two things. Either some projects get put on the back burner, so it's the sort of things that it might not be ready for live, they'll do it at some point during the expansion maybe. Or the overall thing ends up being a bit half-assed. And it could be a combination of the both that actually happens. Let's have a look. Do I think perhaps, considering they're still doing quite a bit with classes, that we will have a shorter pre-patch duration than... No, the pre-patch is predetermined. That's set. That's what it is going to be. Basically, I mean, the abilities, the design team already sort of know how the abilities are working. I know, you know, they're sort of almost set in stone. They're tuning them. They're doing weird things with them, but you're not going to get any extra abilities or... Obviously, bear in mind the build we have in Beta is not necessarily the build they have. They may have a more advanced one. They probably do. So tuning will still need to be done when the pre-patch goes live. But the toolkit will be as it is. Yes, I've not done anything with the filter. Do you know something? This today. It's interesting. Do you know what this idiot, what's this woman's name? Christy Golden, okay? Do you know what she has done in this book? She's absolutely outrageous. Do you know what she's done? She's only gone and called gnomes. She hasn't just called them intellectuals. She hasn't just said they're intelligent. In Anduin's opinion, he reckons, this just shows how thick, I don't know whether it shows how thick he is or how detached from reality the author is. By his estimation, apparently, gnomes are probably the most intellectual race in the Alliance. What nonsense. Absolute nonsense. New Q&A Thursday, 13th. Oh, have they announced something? I haven't seen. Have they just announced that? Oh, yeah, sorry. 14th, it says. It says 14th of June. So that's Thursday. It's usually on Thursdays, isn't it? Yeah, that makes sense. Always when I'm... Actually, oh, no. Do you know what? It may not be when I'm raiding this time, because just joined a new guild, so I'm Horde now, hence that. And so last week, we cleared Mythic in one day, so there wasn't actually a raid on the Thursday. Now, I did stream on the Thursday still, and I still probably will this Thursday, but maybe we'll be able to listen to the Q&A. If that's assuming we're still clearing a day this week. We may not. Apparently it's the first time they've done that, so I don't know. BFA going live worldwide at the same time. There's a possibility NA EU resets will be on the same days. No, it won't. They'll still have the same reset days. Didn't it go live at the same time in Legion? I thought it went live at the same time in Legion. Because I see... I don't know. I can't be certain of that. I don't remember. Has anything caught my eye in E3? Not caught my eye as such. I've noted that the long-awaited Elder Scrolls 6 has been announced. And I've never played any Elder Scrolls. I've played Elder Scrolls Online, but that's not the same thing. I've never played any of the official Elder Scrolls games. But maybe I'll play Elder Scrolls 6. You know, maybe I will. So maybe that. Do I think they can be ready for release? No. They'll continue monkeying about with things after release. They always do. They most especially did in Legion, and made no secret of the fact that they're quite happy to do that. In expansions past with classes, whatever went live sort of was what carried on live. You know, maybe they tweak the odd thing, but they didn't really make significant changes to the way a class worked until the following expansion. That was out the window in because they did that in Legion. They changed, they removed abilities. They completely changed abilities. They nothing was off the table for them virtually. Your prediction for this week's Q&A and E3 event is 8.1 patch trailer. Well, I think that's very likely, yes. I think that's quite likely. Some sort of trailer. They've got to have something to present, haven't they? But yes. They are, but they were in Legion Beta. They still will be. That's just how they're going to work. It'll go in a ready state. It's just, when you're looking at the sharp end of things, there's always tuning to be done anyway. There'll still be tuning to be done when the raid goes live. The idea is because they like Simcraft. At the moment, I'm told, or this was as of a few days ago, there's only about 5 specs that have got a working Simcraft module at the moment. And Blizzard do use that. They said they use that themselves, but I also know from other sources that they use it quite a lot. They use it heavily. So they go with that. But what they really like is live raid data. And they don't get that until the normal and heroic. And then the Mythic opens, and then people go into that. And then they get a load of Mythic data, and they monkey about for the first few weeks. No, we haven't reached BFA release, but you're wondering what they're going to present at BlizzCon pertaining to WoW. Well, I know what will be expected. What will be expected is classic WoW announcement, because it's like, to great fanfare this thing came at the last BlizzCon, and then ever since that, nothing. Not a word. You can hear the sound of distant crickets. Nothing has been said since. So there will be a riot if there isn't an announcement of that at BlizzCon. For the live stuff, I don't know. I would guess, what did they do at the equivalent point in Legion? Was it like the Karazhan announcement? There'll be probably something like that. Some patch content that they'll announce. Oh, hello. Let's think about what it's likely to be. You'd probably expect the raid to open up early September. It's only a shortish one. So, we'll know more about the Lady Vash type one anyway, because there'll be some testing of that in Legion. In Beta, you would think. There was Nighthold testing in the Legion Beta. So I would think there'd be the equivalent testing, coming. So I don't think there'll be much of an announcement about that. They'll hype it up, of course, but I don't think there'll be an announcement, unless, of course, they bring out another three boss raid tier. I haven't tampered with anything. Is it slower? I have touched nothing. It worked last week. Because my initial trial didn't work, and then it worked last week, I've touched nothing. Apart from obviously updating it with the new schedule. But I have not ticked any boxes or unticked any boxes or done anything. New Diablo at BlizzCon. Yeah, again, Diablo. I don't know how big a community it's got, but I would think sufficiently big enough that they ought to announce something for it, yeah. What's the latest info about the class buffs in BF8? There aren't anymore. They're not ruling out bringing out some during the expansion, but when the expansion goes live, the class buffs that are currently in the beta are the class buffs that are going live. That's it. That's it. Nothing else. So there's not going to be any new ones planned. As I say, they are not ruling out introducing some later on. But the problem is, when you do something like that, people will make a decision to play a class or spec based on its ability to enter the content they want to do. Which means there's no real point in bringing stuff out mid-expansion, because by that time a load of people have committed themselves anyway. You know, there are some people who like to pick up a new class and spec halfway through. I think a lot can't be asked. Did you see correct? We can play Blood Trolls. What do you mean secret? No, we don't play Blood Trolls. They're the enemy. You can play Zandalari Trolls. Blood Trolls are the bad guys. Well, I mean, of course, Horde are the bad guys too. You know. So all that nonsense, people going, oh, just wait for the book to come out. Because at BlizzCon, I've read a good quarter of this. At BlizzCon, when people were going, when obviously we got that prologue and one of the chapters, and it very much made it sound like, you know, Sylvanas was full on warmonger evil, and everyone's going, no, out of context, you will need to read the whole thing. They're not going to enjoy reading this if they still want to stick to their Sylvanas is good thing. Just misunderstood. Oh, everyone. No, God, can we not? Seriously. Every time someone wants some more views, they just make a video going, oh, new allied race. And do you know why they do it? Because one, it's all people care about at the moment. And two, when you basically make it up, it means no one else has done the video. So you've cornered the market because you're the only person who's done that video. Because it's all made up. The only allied races that have been announced are Dark Iron Dwarfs and Magar Orcs and Kulturan humans and Zandalari Trolls that we haven't yet got. I mean, technically, the 4 that we have now got are still technically BFA content because you can't play them unless you've actually bought BFA. So it's not part of, even though it came out in January, 8 months before the expansion goes live. The guy, which guy? Because I don't believe that. Because the Blood Trolls are not part of the Horde. They're the enemy. Oh, God almighty. Unless they're just hyping it. Oh, hang on a minute. No, do you know what that is? Oh, my God. You're not actually... There's not a character. There's a quest in there where you are disguised as a Blood Troll. That's probably what that is. That's all that is. There's a particular quest line where you infiltrate the Blood Troll village disguised as a Blood Troll for a bit, for like 15 minutes. So, yeah, that's what that'll be. Because they can't be an allied race. They're not going to ally with the Alliance, are they? And the Horde are fighting. The whole point of the Horde is you're putting them down. That's the story of BFA on Zandalar. We do not want gnome paladins. How many more allied races do you think they'll add? I mean, the thing is, it's a good way to generate... I think they've probably realised it's a good way to generate income. So every time they think that the subs are going to dip a bit, that's the time to bring out some new allied races. So it's limitless, really. But we're not going to be getting them, every couple of months. It'll be like I would say something like every 6 months, maybe. See, they don't just have to add allied races, though. They can add new actual races, too. Because the allied races are supposed to be different versions of races that already exist. So we've already got Void Elves where they're just elves. And then you've got like the High Mountain Tauren where they're just Tauren with moose antlers. Lightforged Draenei, they're just Draenei that actually just basically look like Draenei. They're not really any different apart from glowing tattoos as far as I can tell. You've got, what else? What have I missed out? Oh, your Nightborn, which is just elves again. And then all the allied races that have been announced. So, that's the thing about Vulpera when everyone went mad at me. I said they can't be allied races. Yeah, they can't be allied races because we don't already have Vulpera. They can be a new race. And, why not be a new race? You've leveled what? I haven't leveled any allied races, and now there's no point. The only reason I was leveling a Void Elf was because I quite like the Heritage Arm for Void Elf. But now that I've gone Horde, frankly, what's the point? Do I think allied race will be a unique feature of this expansion? Not if it works. No. What people wanted was sub races. What we got was allied races, which are not as good, and it's not the same thing. Basically, we wanted more customization with characters. Now, what the allied races are for, purely because you'd think to yourself, wouldn't it be easier for them to just do sub races? It means they don't have to mess about with, you know, the heritage armor. They don't have to mess about with racials. That's what I'm trying to think of, and balancing those. But whenever they bring out some allied races, lots of casual players that are only going to subscribe every now and then just to do the content. So when it's in a bit of a lull and those sort of players are going to traditionally unsubscribe, their disproportionate amount of them are going to come back for the allied race. And the fact that you are encouraged to level it all the way from level 1 to level 110 at least, maybe that'll be changed to 120, I don't know, in BFA, to get the heritage armor, that's a huge time sink, a massive time sink. So I think the allied races exist not because it's a good gameplay idea. I think having them as sub-race options would have been a better one. I think they exist because it's a money spin. It's a way to get more subs from the casual player base. So I see no reason, if it works, why they wouldn't continue it until the game's end. But there will still be new races as well. I just hope there's no more new bloody classes. We've got too many. Even if the next classes that come out are ranged only, it's too late. There's too many. They're too far down the rabbit hole on that one. Your prediction for BFA at the end is... Hang on a minute. What do you mean 8, 10, 12 new sub-races in total? Because there come a point... Because they've already, every time they bring out a new allied race, they give us the equivalent number of character slots for that realm. But we're still only allowed 50 characters altogether on the account. There's going to come a point where it can't get to the point where you've got as many character slots on your account as there are characters allowed on the account, surely. All the devs said was not surprised if they'll eventually show up because people like allied races. Yes, they do. But the blood trolls are not allies of anyone. That's the thing. An allied race has got to be something we're at least friendly with. Oh yeah, level 20 starts. That's right, Augie. Yeah, I forgot about that. It's still, I mean, it's still a hell of a time sink. I mean, leveling from 1 to 20 is not actually the biggest chunk of leveling you'll do. Heritage armors aren't worth the time. No, in a lot of opinions, they won't be worth the time. But remember the market it's aimed at. It's aimed at the casual players who burn through the content at the level they wish to play it very, very quickly and unsubscribe. It's if basically the whole player base consisted of people who, if they were going to subscribe at all, would stay subscribed, this wouldn't exist. This feature wouldn't be in the game. They'd be done as sub-races. Right, there are some features that are just put in because it's a business. It needs to make money. And it's put in to make money. But yes. Still think if you've level 1 allied race to max, you unlock the rest. They want it as a time sink. They don't want to be nice to you on this. They actually want it to be a time sink for you. Not, for people who don't stay subscribed. That's what it exists for. That's why the heritage armor. You've purchased the race change because Nightborn and Void Elves have awesome ranged racials. Well, quite frankly, the Void, they just look better. Well, Void Elves in particular, You know, there's a number of reasons why I shall be sorry not to be Alliance in the next expansion. And one of them was because I wanted at least one character as a Void Elf. You know, my Warlock was a Void Elf. I'm now going to have to turn it into a stinking Orc. You know, when I eventually realm transfer it. No justice. You've got a Nightborn at level 80 and you can't stand it anymore. And you know what? Obviously, I mean, I'm sure you do know. Level 80 is probably about halfway through, if that, in terms of what you're going to need to do still. Because obviously the old time ramps up, doesn't it? But yeah, I wasn't looking forward to leveling up, I have to say. I was going to do it just purely because, you know, the Heritage Armour for Void Elves looks good. I don't like the Heritage Armour for anyone else, so I really don't care about the rest. So, for example, you know, I'm going to make, I've decided, a Nightborn Mage. I'm just going to do the quest. What the hell? I'm going to do the quest for Nightborn because when I went Horde, it told me, I tried to get, I did the high mountain stuff, no problem. Then I went to try and do the Nightborn quest, and it said, oh no, you haven't got the achievement. I said, bollocks, haven't I? What's the achievement? It said, Insurrection. I have got that. Bloody have. Apparently not. Not on Horde. I've got it on the Alliance, but apparently it doesn't count. That's disgraceful, that is. Because it's the same thing as well. It's not even like it's different quests for Horde. It's the same quest. Why don't I have it? Again, just making me spend more time doing stuff. I am not going Horde. I've gone Horde. That's there in the middle. Oh, you can't see it. Hold on. That here is my main. Now that I can character copy. Look, notice the red Scythe of Sargeras there on that there Blood Elf. So it's done. No point to do World Quests. Emissaries removed. Have they? When did they remove emissaries? I haven't done any World Quests recently. Oh, have they taken them off? Well, there'll still be a point in doing World Quests early on because they give you rep and you will want rep. They also give rewards that will be worthwhile when you're just starting out. Belf is not worse than Gnomes, but it hardly matters. There is no real choice. If you're going to be... No, my guild didn't go Horde, I just did. If you're going to go Horde as a Paladin, there is really only Blood Elf. That's it. There is no other choice. You think they can fix faction imbalance for raiding? They're not doing. It really doesn't matter whether I think they can. They are not doing. They said that they identified it as a problem. Took bloody long enough. And they said they had a plan to deal with it. Nothing has emerged. And it's several months since they said that. It's at least 2 months since they said that. And it may be 3. Nothing has emerged about this plan. So if they do have a plan, it's too late for BFA. Because there's already Horde. If you look down, let's say on WoW Progress at look at the Alliance guilds, quite a lot of them, if they haven't already gone Horde, say that they're going Horde. You know. You started listening to the Before the Storm audiobook today. Well, yeah, I mean, I've read a quarter of it so far, just before, because I didn't think I was going to get it in time, because yesterday I saw a Royal Mail leaflet in my door. It said, oh, we'll try to deliver a package, but it's too big for your letterbox. And I thought, what? I thought, the only thing I've got on order is this book. Surely that's not too big. So I thought, oh, bugger. So I'm not going to be able to pick it up till the weekend, basically, because the sorting office where I am, I'm not realistically going to be able to get there during the week. But it must have been something else. I'm still curious as to know what it is, because this arrived today through the door. So, yeah, so I've read part of it. A lot of it, it's more Anduin than Sylvanas, but obviously the Sylvanas that there is pure evil, naturally. It said I have to do insurrection. The quest specifies it. It says the reason I cannot do it is because I don't have insurrection. Right, I'm going to prove it. Let's have a look. Where are we? Right, let's carry on reading stuff anyway. Did anyone see or hear a post on YouTube hinting at a third playable race? Now, I saw a title on Taliesin and Evertal's video on that, but that's nonsense. There is no hint, and there is no reason to have a third faction in World of Warcraft, and there is no way they would do it even if there were. So, that's, again, I don't know what's possessed them to even mention that. I didn't actually watch the video, though, I have to say. I've been so busy. But, there is 3 reasons why it's not. I mean, 1, there is no hint of that. 2, a third faction makes sense for PvP, world PvP. Absolutely makes sense. But, and it would have made sense at the start of World of Warcraft. But at the point we're at now, it makes no sense. Because 1, there isn't any world PvP. And what they laughably call world PvP is all sharded anyway. So they can control the balance of factions. That's what 3 factions are for. It's so that if you end up with one faction that gets quite big, the other 2 can gang up on it. Sylvanas does a lot of talking about the original Horde races compared to the new. She doesn't do a lot of talking about it. She mentions it. No. There's no hint of it. Not a sausage. Just people making stuff up again. Right. I've completely forgotten where everything is now in order. Bloody Orgrimmar. Pain in the arse. Pain in the arse. This place I have to go to. They said cross-faction achievement should work for allied race unlock. Should open a ticket. Well, I'm doing it. I was doing it anyway. I had nothing else to do, I have to say. But still, I'm going to... Is this it? Embassy. Here we go. Right, where are we? Let's have a look. I have done it on Alliance. It bloody took me ages to do it on Alliance. I was pissed off with it. Well, it's cheating me. Because I've completed Suramar on Alliance. I've not had much else to do since I've finished my artifact. Or as finished as it's going to get. No quests in Suramar for me apart from world quests. But it would come as no surprise if Blizzard are fiddling me. They always do. There's too many gnomes work there. Look. Outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. Because I'm doing quests that I've done before. I even remember doing the quests. But there you go. The Coon fight's going to feel fantastic. No, it's going to be... I hope that sarcasm is dreadful. Absolutely appalling. I haven't even experienced it yet either. Absolutely dreadful. The least they can do is take my movement speed off the global cooldown. The least they can do. When the global cooldown is about half the bloody duration, it's annoying. And I don't even have divine intervention anymore. So, you know. I don't know. We'll just have to see how it goes anyway. Have to see. But it's always particularly annoying when it's a really key boss. Because those are the bosses. You don't want someone to say, oh, you'd better sit this one out because your class is shit for it. Hang on a minute, what have I just said? All the Orgrimmar Horde leaders are out of the picture except for Sylvanas. Oh, oh, okay. Well, I don't. Yeah, obviously, they've set up a storyline whereby if people think there is a coup in the air, Sourfang would be the obvious one. He's reasonably prominent, I suppose. He's not. I mean, the thing is, he's not a huge character when you play as Alliance. Really, you can almost not even know who he is. But I suppose for Horde he is. Oh, did I mention the competition idea? No, I didn't. Yes. So, yes, what I was thinking of doing, basically because I had an idea for a competition. It would take about a month to do it. And I was just thinking, like, as a prize, because an easy one, I say a relatively easy one. As soon as you think of it, though, there's still all sorts of problems with it. But I was thinking, like, a digital reward, like a mount from the WoW store of someone's choice. Because I've got an account on both NA and EU, so I'd be able to gift it to someone regardless of which realm they're on, or region they're on, sorry. But the idea is that for subscribers, essentially, because the idea is that there'd be a video each week where at a random point during it, it'd be a World of Warcraft video, obviously, a clue would pop up, and there'd be 4 such clues, and then, you know, you'd have to say what the answer is. And the idea is you'd have to say what the link is between the 4 things, which could be people or places. And there'd be, again, a person or place in the Warcraft lore that's a clue to it. It wouldn't need any in-depth knowledge of the lore. It'd all be relatively straightforward. But so I'll be announcing it. I've worked out the clues and everything. So I just need to work on, because you have to be very careful when you do a competition on YouTube. You have to explain all the rules very carefully. So I'm trying to think of things to make sure it's all perfectly clear. So I'm going to talk about that in the mailbox. So the idea is that I'd introduce it in the mailbox, and people will have to, because then you have to say, well, where do people post their response? Because I don't always have time to read every response. So I'm going to have to say that the response either needs to be in the mailbox where I announce it, or in one of the 4 videos where I post the clues. And then I'll do, with everyone who gets it correct, a live thing on this. And hopefully it's going to coincide with the launch of the pre-patch, at least in North America, because I'll do it in the Azeroth review at the start on the 17th of July. The problem is that it sounded quite simple at first when I was thinking about it, because all I need to do is whoever wins, I'll find their winning message, send them a private message through YouTube saying, give me your battle tag, and then I'll add you as a friend, and then I can gift you the mount. But the problem is YouTube are disabling that. So it's going to have to be an in-game mail, which means people need to leave the name of their character and which realm they're on, a Discord, so that I can contact them on Discord, or on private messaging on Twitter or on Facebook. But, you know, it's still doable. So, yes, that is the plan there. Any salvation for Thrall after Legion? Well, he's supposed to be featuring in BFA. We just haven't seen him yet in the beta. Because there's 2 things about Thrall. One is he's supposed to be making some sort of expedition to Zandalar with Vol'jin's ashes. You know, Blizzard have talked a little bit about that, but there's been no details yet. I strongly suspect that that'll be for a later patch. And then there's that Il'gynoth's Whisper, which, I mean, bear in mind, some of Il'gynoth's Whispers might be just shit they made up while they were out on curry night one night, that has no relevance to anything. But let's say they have some relevance to future content. Then the Il'gynoth's Whisper that basically goes, He draws strength from the earth. Our strength, our earth. Might well apply to Thrall. It sounds very shamanistic. So there might be... I really don't think they would ever corrupt Thrall. But it might suggest that at least the old gods are plotting to do so. Metzen isn't gone. He's not gone. If he was gone, so would the retribution passive be. Right? I now know, I was sort of told and I sort of semi-believed it, but I now know for certain that the reason Ret Paladins have to have the Ret passive, even though they've kindly nerfed it for us, because the developers aren't stupid, they know it's shit. It's because Metzen thinks it's cool. Guy who doesn't even play Ret Paladin. He says he plays Ret Paladin, he doesn't. His Paladin is holy. And it's not even level capped. It's outrageous. He doesn't even have the passive. He's not even high enough level. Actually, that's not true. He is high enough level to have that. But still, it doesn't matter. That's the reason why we've still got it. So he's still there. We saw him kill Deathwing in the beta. I killed Deathwing. Thank you very much. He just blinded him a bit and knocked him in the sea. I'm the one who killed him. I distinctly remember. I've still got the video. Do I think sometime in the future Thrall will meet his sister from alternate Draenor? Didn't he do that in WoD? I don't remember. I was mostly Alliance in WoD. I was Horde at the end. And I did level as Horde during the beta. Obviously leveled as Beth just to get a view. Didn't he not? Okay, I don't know then. Whenever it comes to weird family links, there tends to be more for the Alliance than the Horde. Such as, for example, Kalia in here. The Retribution passive makes no sense. It's bad. Okay? If it was going to be defensive in nature, that'd be fine. Like, the defensive element of it is fine. It could even put a random absorb shield on a friendly person. That's fine too. No one would care about that. But the problem is, right, the Retribution passive and Shield of Vengeance are both very, very bad for Ret Paladin damage because they have to take them. They say they don't take the Ret passive into account when tuning. Bollocks. And Shield of Vengeance, they do say that they take that into account. So if you can't pop a full shield of Vengeance every time on cooldown, then you're not doing as much damage as you're intended to, basically, is what they say. The 20% speed one, no. The Retribution passive, the one that means when someone dies that we have to do more damage, which basically means if no one dies, we don't do the extra damage. And the extra damage is actually worth quite a lot. They've nerfed it in BFA, but it's still there, which means, you know, if you're on a fight where people die every time you pop wings, great, fine, you'll do damage. If they don't die, i.e. when you're on farm, or when you've decided to behave yourself and kill the boss, you don't do damage. No damage. Anyway. They don't tune anyone to be highest DPS on patchwork fights. They'll tune them to be the same on patchwork fights, in theory, except the problem is that bosses aren't patchwork fights. So the ones that tend to tune the highest tend to be the ones that suffer more in realistic raiding situations. Obviously, every now and then aberrations get past because they're not very good at it sometimes. Because the problem is, it's not that the game's designers aren't terribly good. Most of them are. It's just that you have a small number of cretins who are influential and make a mess of the whole thing. Which is why you end up with something like Affliction Warlocks as they've been in Legion. You know, it's not that the developers don't actually understand how to do the job. It's because someone is there thwarting them. The enhancements. Yeah, I've noticed the enhancement. Shaman's moaning again now. Affliction can get absolutely screwed by soul RNG. It's not very likely on a boss fight. They tend not to. They don't need luck. Over the course of a fight, you make your own luck. But anyway, the point is that at some point you end up with things like that happening because it all gets out of hand. Someone quite influential, you know, instead of doing their job properly, basically put something in the game that's naturally going to either benefit a particular spec out of proportion to what it's intended to do or knacker it. And the problem is, it's not balancing isn't always about tuning knobs. Sometimes if you design abilities in such a way, and then it can be impossible to tune them, to actually get them balanced. Ret is stronger on progress. Well, no, but sometimes that acts against you as well. Because sometimes people will look at logs, you know, when you're wiping, and they'll go, oh yeah, but the ret's only doing that because people are dying. As soon as people stop dying, they won't do it anymore. And, you know, in theory, you might get some rets benched because people think they won't actually do enough damage when the boss eventually dies. So, but it's more the point that when people die, I mean, I distinctly remember, for example, one Sisters of the Moon stream I did ages ago, obviously, because Tomb of Sargeras. And there was one, and it was on farm, and there was one fight where just for some reason, just everyone kept dying. But on that fight, you get away with it when people die. It's not actually a big DPS race. So you can get away with half your raid dying, as long as they don't all do it at the start. But constantly throughout the fight, people were dying. And I said to the stream, I'll bet you that that log is way higher than normal, even though I've done exactly the same thing. And it was. And it was because I had, you know, high uptime on the Retribution passive. Instant high log. Do I have a ret buddy in the new guild? No. There's only one other paladin. It's a healer. Don't you think that the classes that struggle the most with mobility should do their damage in short bursts? I don't think classes should struggle with mobility. I think there are certain things that everyone should have access to. If they want to give you it in different formats, that's fine. But everyone should have access to different things. So, for example, they already know that melee need an interrupt off the global cooldown, 15-second cooldown, so that you can get a rotation going. But the same should also apply to adequate defensives and adequate mobility. You can still have some that have got better if you like, but everyone should have adequate of those things for every fight you design. And if you don't want to stymie your encounter designers by saying, no, you can't do that mechanic because it'll shit on the DKs and rets, then give us proper mobility to begin with. This must be the first expect where I've not been particularly excited. It seems to me that there's a lot of people not particularly excited. It still amazes me that when I look at, you know, the larger YouTubers doing their videos, there is no sense of hype. You know, the only time anything is hyped really is made up stuff. Like, as I say, blood trolls as an allied race. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. I'm on Kazakh, which is a big old realm. Which will be fun, I imagine, when the expansion goes live and when the raids go live. In fact, I've been told it will be fun. There should be more differences between classes. There's loads of differences between classes. Loads. There always has been. There's never been a point where classes have felt at all similar. Individual specs within a class, but half the problem has been that they make too much effort making individual specs within a class for the same role feel different. That shouldn't happen. You know, like all 3 specs of a warlock, why do they all need to play differently? It's a warlock. It's a bloody warlock. You're actually hampering yourself if you make them play differently, because let's say someone really enjoys the play style of demonology, say, but they're not keen on affliction or destruction. Well, then what if you make one particular tier demonology's a shit spec, and you've got to play, well, like in Legion, where for most fights you needed to play affliction. The odd one, destruction, was okay. What then? You know, so you're telling someone that they can fall in love with a particular class and do really well on it, and then all of a sudden one expansion or one tier, oh, you're going to have to play this spec that you don't enjoy. All the specs should basically play the same. Obviously, the difference between different DPS specs should be different strengths. Blood Trolls are not the ex-allied race. They're not even going to be an allied race ever. They're not an ally. They're a race. They fulfill 50% of the requirement. They're a race, but they are no one's ally. They are the old god's ally. That makes them, by definition, no friend of either the Horde or the Alliance. There have not been any new casters. No. I mean, I keep saying, I thought when I first saw DKs being announced, it looked to me from the gameplay I was watching that there was going to be a range spec with the DK. It looked like it was casting things from afar. And I thought, oh, this is like an armoured necromancer type thing. But no. It was just a lazy, unholy DK. We wish each spec had the same play style but different themes. But, well, have I read the mythic feedback thread? God, no. Why would I do that? Why would I punish myself? Occasionally people show me posts from those. I really don't have time at the moment as well. When I'm in term time, I just have so little time to do anything. I'm behind with my Skaven painting as well. I'm not going to be able to do a video this week if I'm not careful. Every other post was about Titan Forging and Mythic not being rewarded enough. Yeah, but that's... it's the same argument about the 10 versus 25 man raiding. You've got fundamentally lazy people, sorry, but people who don't want to put in the effort to do the hardest content. They want to think that the content they're doing, which is easy to organise, should somehow be on the same level because that's what they want to do. No. Raiding is the premier content. It's the most epic content. It's not even as epic as it used to be. 20 man. 20 man used to be your outrun on a Saturday afternoon, for goodness sake. But no, that's now the premium one. But it's still a damn sight more epic than Dungeons. So, yeah, that's not going to get anywhere. Blizzard know that. That's just madness. Because all they'll be left with there, if they make Mythic plus Raiding on the same... It's right that they put it close up there. I think it should be very rewarding. But if you put it absolutely on a par, hi Cliffardo, then you create a situation where your endgame raiders are also... that endgame content is casual friendly. And when that happens... that means all the, what they're fighting against is all these people who subscribe for a couple of months and then unsubscribe for a few months and then subscribe for a couple of months. They make the entire player base like that. So they'd shoot themselves in the foot from a business as well as just from an epic point of view. There is also, yes, indeed, no reason to have pure DPS classes having 3 specs. But, and I strongly believe, although they've never said it, that the current development team would probably, if they were to design the game from the ground up, probably not do that. I mean, we could sort of see that a little bit with Demon Hunters. But they've inherited it. And it's, I'll be honest, I was a bit surprised at them changing combat into Outlaw for Rogues. That was a surprise to me. But in essence, Outlaw is not massively... I mean, there are, obviously, they added a load of things to it. But you could sort of see a similarity between... You could almost call Outlaw a very changed combat spec. But the idea that they could remove a whole spec, they'd be hell to pay. Imagine that. Imagine them getting rid of, say, Destruction Warlock, Arcane Mage, let's say, assassination rogue and survival hunter, you know, there'd be blood on the streets of California. Mythic is rewarding enough. It's proven to be rewarding enough because loads of people do it. It's spectacularly successful. I mean, you could argue early on in Legion that, because I always say if you create a compulsion to do it, then you can't really tell if it's really popular or if it's just people feeling compelled to do it. But later on in the expansion, there's no great compulsion to do Mythic Plus dungeons, but people still do. So it's obviously is rewarding enough. In the Confessions of a Pugger thread, if the leader is from Kazakh, it's a 90% chance that it is a boost group. If you join an Argus only group with a leader from Kazakh, it is 100% a boost group. Good. Well, we did actually we did a heroic boost on Sunday. Mythic raiding rewards are subjectively valued. That red scythe and the mats. No, others won't think so. Like, I mean, take Asmongold, for example. You know, he's done mythic raiding for donkey's years, hasn't he? He has now decided, for the time being at least, to not do that. I'm not quite sure why. I mean, obviously I know the reasons he cited. But ultimately, what he said was, it's not sufficiently rewarding compared to heroic. You know, it says if you just run heroic over and over enough times, the gear you get is good enough. And it's true, it is. Because at the end of the day, if you don't do mythic raiding anyway, why would you need that level of gear? Because you get the same set bonuses. You know, in BFA it'll be Azerite traits from doing heroic. You get the same trinkets. You get the same everything. Just lower item level. Maybe. I mean, every now and then you'll get lucky, of course. But on balance, of course, your item level will be lower. But it won't be that much lower. Which guild on Kazakh did I join? I joined Endless. Which is actually quite amusing, because when I look at my character now, it says Thete, and then it says underneath, Endless Trial. Which I suppose would be correct at the end of an expansion. It'll seem it, won't it? Because the next bit of progress is about, what, 3 months away? 2.5 months away. There's nothing that remains exclusive to high-end raiding, unlike PvP. Well, there's titles, but you have to complete it for that. You have to get your cutting-edge title to get the title, don't you? At the same time, I'm not all that keen on that. Most of the titles are rubbish. Obviously, I think they're running out of ideas on that. As much as we wouldn't like to admit... Hold on, sorry. Hang on, what have I missed? A lot of people are raiding for the gear, not the challenge. Oh, there's all sorts of reasons for doing mythic raiding. Some people are absolutely in for the gear. Some people just want the achievement. Some people actually just want to do the challenging form of the content. So many different reasons for people to do it. And gear is a powerful... But, I mean, part of that is because, again, World of Warcraft has been designed to reward gear. That's the reward it gives. There are some MMOs where gear is a reward, and then there's other rewards as well, more cosmetic in nature. And I would argue that, I've argued before, the cosmetic rewards are more compelling to more people. A greater proportion of the player base would be motivated more by cosmetic rewards, partly because they can't possibly get the highest level gear rewards anyway, so they're always going to be inferior. Whereas there's nothing to stop dedicated but casual players, let's say, depends on your definition of casual, from getting some of the best cosmetic items in the game. There are too many raid difficulties. There are too many raid difficulties. I cannot argue against LFR, though, in terms of what it's intended to do. You know, I mean, it obviously doesn't help organised raiders. In fact, it hinders. But it's not for organised raiders, even, you know. But there are too many difficulties, but unfortunately that's where we are. The mounts are quite nice. The problem with the mounts is not everyone who's put in the progress will get them. Like, for example, now, because, I mean, in the past few expansions, people would have got the mounts because there's such a long lead into the next expansion, you can just farm it each week. Now, and obviously it's be silly to complain about this, because there isn't a big content drought, like there has been in the past few expansions, there isn't actually enough time for people to farm all the Argus mounts once they've got cutting edge. You know, and for example, what happens when a guild maybe gets cutting edge right on the last week that they can, you know, in July? Only one person can get them out then. After that, it's down to 1% chance, isn't it? Finishing the hard content is a good reward. Absolutely, yes. I absolutely think that, yeah. Because that's why, because I didn't get cutting edge on Mythic Kill Jaden, I won't do Mythic Kill Jaden anymore. Someone says, let's go and do it. I refuse to kill it now. Because I didn't kill it when it was current, I don't want it on my achievements thing. I want that achievement to be completely blank. Because to me, it's worse than useless getting it after. It's like worse than that. I'd rather it not be there at all. Get rid of Mythic Raids. Then they get rid of you make it a purely casual game, which is then fine in a way, but then all you end up with is a casual player base. And then at that point, the subscription model makes no sense. And you have to make it like some sort of free-to-play model. Or very similar to it. Could LFR be swapped out for a single-player storyline based on the raid bosses? I mean, I've often thought about single-player versions of raids. More for old raids. For LFR, yeah, you could. You could do it where you've got a load of, you know, these smart NPCs that they're doing for island expeditions. They could just give you a small, not a big raid full of them, but a small party of the, you know, so you've got a tank, a healer, a couple of DPS, like a party, and you go and do the bosses. So yeah, they could. But the problem is that would be more effort to design that than it would to design LFR, so they just do LFR. But I've talked before about turning old raids at least into personal scenarios. I think that'd be good. And it could absolutely be done for current ones as well, just so that people can do their tourist mode. But I think Blizzard will see it as more work and not enough reward. What about serious players who play the game competitively? Viewers won't want to sit there and watch them heroic raids that can do it themselves. I don't know. The biggest streamers don't stream Mythic Raids, do they? Well, Asmongold is the biggest streamer. You know, he gets plenty of people watching him do normal and heroic raids. So I don't know about that. Hi, Cullen. Oh, thank you. So look, gear became meaningless back in the beginning when you got a good epic. You felt it. Well, yeah. Well, the quality of gear is meaningless now. Like, I don't even think there should be quality of gear. They should just have gear. There's no point in like green, blue, purple type thing. But gear is not meaningless. Gear is the only thing that means anything in this game. Because that's how they've designed it. Mythic Plus is more entertaining than Mythic Raid streamed, of course, because it's more. It's a smaller group. It's a you know. Well, the questions have not been coming as thick and fast as last week. I don't know whether people are more shy. We haven't got quite as many people watching. That's not a good thing. Although it's still more than usually on Twitch. Mythic Raids are also a goal for many players that can take often ages for them to feel ready. There is that as well. I mean, there's a lot of people that will do heroic, with a view to stepping up and doing Mythic, and they understand that they won't complete the Mythic Raid, but they'd like to do it and kill a few bosses. And that in itself is an aim. It's that aspirational thing, isn't it? That if anyone does any organised raiding, this is why it does my head in that when people want to do infrequent raiding or just quit raiding, that instead of joining a guild that wants to do the same thing, I don't like that there are so many pugs, basically. You know, if I were to want one thing removing from the game system-wise, it would be the group finder tool. I don't like it. I know it would not actually ultimately do any good because there are third-party sites that you used to be able to use to find raid groups anyway, you know. But I don't like the fact that people think it's more efficient, and I'm not saying they're not right, by the way, to just use Group Finder to get a guild group, raid group, as opposed to just joining a guild that, say, wants to raid normal once a week or something. That would be a better experience for everyone. And it annoys me that, you know, people don't see that. But, you know. It's a rare thing to opt out of getting the achievements. The achievements mean nothing to me unless they're an actual achievement. It's not an actual achievement if you do it when the content's easy. Wouldn't I feel discouraged as a GM to commit a proper schedule and fix 20 people when you already have Titan Forge loot there? No. Because, you know, I will carry on. I don't need any gear now. You know, my gear is, as I've shown when I've been leveling up my character in the beta, way good enough to go through. More than good enough. I don't need any more gear. But I still want to raid each week until the expansion's over. Because I want, you know, there should only be 2 weeks in an expansion when I don't raid, and that's the 2 weeks when there's no bloody raid. Or I'm actually hoping this time it's a bit more than 2 weeks, so that people don't feel rushed. They always bring stuff out too early in an expansion. You don't think the game has a lifespan left for any big changes to old raids or content? Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know how much longer the game's got. Titan Forge is the worst idea ever. Not for Blizzard, you know. They identified what they wanted it to do, and it does it. Well, it did it in Legion anyway. Whether it will do it in BFA, obviously they recognise that it has had a negative effect, which is why they're supposedly reducing the rate at which it drops. But time will tell on that one. Achievements are a cheap way to make content for us. No. Now, Asmongold's good at that. He likes doing it. Because I'm not a collector, like, I'm not a completionist, that's the word I was trying to think of. I'm not someone who needs to get all the mounts and the pets and stuff like that. So. Hang on, so Frick, what did you say? Oh, I've probably missed it. Sorry, never mind. WoW integrates a lot of mechanics from Diablo 3. Yes, my bloody Divine Steed being one of them. I didn't even like it in Diablo 3. What the bloody hell are they doing bringing it into World of Warcraft? Christ almighty. And some of it indeed doesn't work in WoW. The stuff that does work in WoW, great. I mean, I am a big believer that they should, you know, whenever there's a good idea in another game, they should absolutely nick it. And they used to be good at doing it as well. They used to be quite good. Hi, Brandon. They used to be quite good at getting ideas from other games and improving it and putting it into World of Warcraft. They don't do that anymore. You know, even when games have got good ideas, they just don't put it in. So obviously, it's less cheeky to nick an idea from a game in the same game studio. But yes, some of them don't really work. Your guild is stopping raiding 2 weeks before BFA. Cowards. Nice little break. Nice little break anyway. Raiding. You know, you just do whatever's easy farm, obviously. Apart from anything else, it's a good idea to raid during the pre-expansion patch, because you can get used to your abilities in a raiding setting. That was quite difficult for Legion because you only had half your abilities. Because you didn't have the artifact traits. There aren't any artifacts. I mean, there's Azerite traits, but they mostly augment things rather than give you straight up new abilities. So, as far as I can tell anyway. So you can actually get used to your new toolkit. Obviously, it'll be completely out of whack because the set bonuses will make a mess of certain things, but it'll still be good for people to try things out in a raiding setting. Is it possible to introduce a third faction to spice up the game? No. Let's go through this once and for all. No. A third faction is essential for any game that has proper world PvP, because otherwise you end up with faction imbalance. You end up with loads of one faction, not enough of another, and then the faction that's in the minority goes, stuff this, I'm going to go to a server where I'm in the majority, and the whole situation just gets worse and it ends up a complete mess. It basically is, out of all the things that were wrong with, say, Warhammer Online, that was the thing that properly smashed it in the face. Because it had good world PvP, but it had two factions. So in the early days of World of Warcraft, 3 factions for PvP only would have been a good idea, because then we wouldn't have had this situation like we've got now, where you've got realms where it's either all Horde or all Alliance. But there's no point in World of Warcraft, because not only do we not have proper world PvP, but what they laughably call world PvP is sharded. So they can ensure, apart from on RP realms, they can actually ensure that you've got a good balance of Horde and Alliance players in any given zone. So there's no need for a third faction. And from a PvE point of view, factions are a terrible idea. They are the spawn of the devil. They're what has caused me to have to go bloody Horde, because there's no raiding guild. You know, you are at the mercy of having to change faction that you don't want to play if factions have an impact on PvE, which they do. So what they should have is 0 factions in PvE. They should just have players. Elder Scrolls Online has it exactly right. They did it perfectly. Not when it first came out. They had to change it. But because they made those changes early enough in it, you know, they were accepted. And because they were good changes, they accepted. What kind of futuristic headphone am I using? It's not a futurist. It's just got an... It's just... I like flashy things. I like things that light up and go beep. It's a microphone that I never work. I don't even know why I bought a headset with a mic on it. It's just habit. Yeah, my old headset broke and I bought a new one. Completely forgetting that I use a separate microphone now. I should have just got some headphones. So that when these break, which actually they seem to be holding up, I seem to be taking care of these ones. Why haven't I done a video with my painting? Because I'm getting behind with it. I've been busy with other things. All I've got on at the moment, my Skaven, is a base coat of brown for the fur and face and stuff, and most of the base coat for the cloaks. So I'm not doing the video on it until I've at least got the base paint, some shading, and some layers on it. Until it's like table fit, at least at a basic level. So I'm actually in a rush to get it done, because I'm thinking now, partly I was thinking I could get a couple of hours done today, but I might end up just reading that. And I'm thinking, so I can't tomorrow because I've got a raid tomorrow. Thursday, it depends how the raid goes tomorrow, but I'll still be streaming either way, so that's still a good, what, 3.5 hours, but I can spend some other time painting. Friday I'm streaming, but I can still paint on Friday as well. So it might be like Thursday, hopefully I'll be in the position to do a video on it. I am recording it, yes. But until I've got something that I can show at the end of it as not quite finished, but at least you can see where it's going. I want basically it to be in a position where it just needs the details adding. The other problem I've got is I've chosen poorly, because the Skaven that I've chosen to do first are the ones with dual wielding swords. And then I realised of the paints I ordered, I didn't order any suitable metallic paints for the blades. And I can't get the paints because the useless buggers are incapable of delivering on a Saturday. Anyway, I can talk about that in the actual Warhammer video. Anyway, I'm probably missing so many things here. PlanetSide 2 has 3 factions and all server had one of them dominating the other 2. Well, okay, well that can't be helped. But at least 3 factions gives you a fighting chance. I'm Horde. I can kill all the gnomes. I can kill no gnomes. I am completely incapable. I could kill gnomes as Alliance. You got to understand, I'm a PvE player. I'm not a PvP player. I will now not come across any gnomes that I can get killed. Right? The only way I could possibly get a gnome killed now, right, is if I was to see a gnome questing in the area and I go and there happens to be a big nasty elite in the area, I could taunt it, bring it near the gnome, right, wait for the gnome to do, if let's say it drops some AoE, because it's a mage, they're always mages, you know, drag this mob into the AoE and then bubble, drop my aggro and run away and then it'll pound the gnome. That's the only possible way I can get a gnome killed now. And that requires so many uncontrollable variables all to happen at the same time. You know, there needs to be a gnome in the area. There needs to be a very nasty, unsoloable elite in the area. And the gnome has to do some form of AoE ability, whether healing or damage. If I weren't playing Ret, what would I play in BFA? A casual player. I would be casual. I wouldn't play for raiding. There's no other class that I know that I will stick with. You know, I could choose a class to play, and maybe Hunter, maybe Warlock. Yeah, there's something I could choose to play. But I know that after a few months, I would get sick of it and want to do something else. I'd be one of those people that every few months wants to change their main, which is grim. Should get all the viewers of this video to go to the MMO link for Thursday's Q&A and spam the legendary bank tab question. Yes, you should. The thing is, I know what the answer is now. The answer is no, because it's not there. Like, the game, as it is in beta at the moment, it's basically done. They've said it's done, but it's obvious anyway. At this point, it is done. The content's there. They're just fine-tuning and getting things fixed. And there is no legendary tab, which means there's not going to be. What do you mean too cowardly to fight 1v1? I would absolutely fight 1v1, but how am I supposed to fight 1v1 when there's no PvP? I am not putting war mode on just to kill a gnome. That's just silly. That's cutting your nose off to spite your face. I'm not turning war mode on. You can't turn war mode on anyway. You can only turn war mode on in Orgrimmar. You can't even turn it on just in any old rested zone. It's got to be specifically Orgrimmar. Can I take care of your Excel spreadsheets? No, I've got enough of my own to be dealing with. You're the same with Druid. Well, exactly. This is, I mean, it's nice in a way that you enjoy playing a spec or class, you know, regardless of what they do to it, what sort of mess they make of it. I mean, this stems back to when I played, it stems back 30 years when I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. You know, why the bloody hell I didn't... See, my first character was a wizard, basically a mage. And if I'd have carried on playing the mage, I'd have probably played a mage in World of Warcraft and have a brilliant time. Or if I'd have decided to play a thief, I'd have probably ended up playing a rogue. And again, I'd be one of the ones laughing at all the moaning that Rets and Shamans keep doing. But, you know... Turning war mode on to level the first day. Yes, I may do that. That's acceptable. But I'm not having it on when you've got the roving death squads wandering around. It's just an epic waste of time. Waste of my time. I mean, it's a waste of my time having to engage in PvP in the game as it is now, where 90% of the time, if not more, I come away a winner. In BFA, I won't, because there will be groups going around. Because that'll be the most efficient way to do it. Because remember, if you kill a load of people, you suddenly get a target on you. You can open up the map, the zone map, and you can see anyone who's killed 10 people without dying themselves. So it pays for it to be a whole group of people. As a Warhammer fan, have I tried Total War or Blood Bowl? Well, Total War obviously is the PC game. No, I haven't. I've played actual Blood Bowl, which is the board game version, but that was years ago. I still have it. I imagine the rules have changed a bit. But if you mean Blood Bowl as in a PC version of it, no. I've not played... The only Warhammer PC game I've ever played is Warhammer Online, which I liked to a certain extent. If you're a druid or a rogue, yeah. Well, you can stealth, yes. Of course, even stealth, you'll still show up on the minimap. What's my opinion on Blizzard changing the AP requirements? What have I missed? What change in AP requirements? What? Oh, the amount to level. Oh, yeah. Well, that makes sense because the way it was before was because I was saying about this because I was really annoyed because again I was on one of my little rants talking about the fact you don't get anything for leveling these days, which you don't. And Blizzard was saying, oh well, you get Azeroth stuff. Azeroth is linked to leveling now, so you get little rewards of that, which is not true because it's not linked to leveling. But I got. So when I leveled, and this was quite late. In fact, this might have actually been... no, it was early beta. The first character I got to 120 in beta. I got my first piece of Azerite gear, obviously right at the start. I didn't get another piece of Azerite gear until I was level 116. And yeah, the traits, you had to get more levels. Whereas now, yeah, you get... For the first piece of Azerite gear you get... It's like, your first trait at Azeroth level 1, then it's 2, and then 3 or something. So, yeah, you are now getting more regular Azeroth traits, although not pieces still. This here character is something like level 114, 15, and I have actually got 2 pieces of Azeroth gear, so it's better. But I think they're both maxed out as well. So, I'm getting... My necklace is higher level than I need it to be. I imagine that will stop at level cap. Yeah, it certainly ticks over noticeably more quickly, which is better, but it's still not linked to leveling. So, I'm still annoyed that you don't get things with levels. The thing is, they said, even when the alpha had already opened, they said they didn't really know what they wanted to do with it. They know that they need the artifact power system because it's what keeps people playing the game. It worked in Legion. It was bloody annoying. It was a compulsion rather than something that's fun. But it worked for what they wanted it to do, like so many things in Legion. Do I have any hope for the island expedition? Well, for the smart NPCs, I have hope that they could put that into other areas of the game, yeah. But in terms of the islands themselves, even Blizzard don't seem confident that it'll stay relevant through the expansion, which seems a bit mad to me. But it is, when you've done a few, it's not like Mythic Plus. Mythic Plus can remain engaging. I really don't think Island Expeditions can in the same way. So I think they'll struggle. And the only way they'll be able to keep it relevant will be to make sure that they that you have to do it because of the rewards. But that'll be rubbish. Will BFA be the most alt-friendly expansion? No, it can't be. It's mathematically impossible. I saw that. I didn't see the video again. I saw the title that Preach did. How can it possibly be more alt-friendly than every other expansion that came before Legion? It can't. All you had to do on an alt, let's say Warlords of Draenor was the most alt-friendly expansion. All you had to do in that, for as an example, get to level cap, get some gear. That's it. It's all you had to do. You didn't have to do anything else. Whereas in BFA, you've got to get to level cap. You've then got to get your reputations up. Okay. All right. Some of the stuff is going to be the achievements that it unlocks is account wide, like World Quests. Fair enough. But you're still going to need those reps because it still rewards gear and patterns if you've got any professions. You're going to need to gear up as you would with anything else. You're going to need to get your Azeroth neck up. So you're going to need to farm artifact power. How could it possibly, just with that alone, if there's nothing else, that's more than you needed to do in WoD. By definition, the game cannot possibly... The best it can achieve is that it's more alt-friendly than Legion. That is the absolute best it can achieve. It cannot possibly be better than any other expansion that has ever been before Legion. Would be nice to have a few characters end game geared without having to play 24/7. You'll have one. Does anyone count WoD as an expansion? Yes, it was an expansion. It was actually a very good expansion for me personally. It was obviously a terrible expansion at an objective level. But my experience of Walls of Draenor was almost exclusively positive. Because there were only two things to do in WoD. One was level. Well, I liked the leveling. I thought it was fun. I also enjoyed going around finding the followers. I liked that. And the second thing is you could raid. Well, I liked raiding. That was fun. So WoD for me was ideal. Whereas in Legion, the leveling was nice. I have no issue with the leveling, but it wasn't as nice as in WoD. Because I actually quite liked finding the followers. Then you had to do as well as the raiding, which was still good. But you also had to do Mythic Plus dungeons and World Quests. And they're adding to that list Warfronts and Islands. So, for me personally, Legion was not a great expansion. Even though I know objectively it was a much better expansion. But for me personally, it was a less good experience. And BFA may also be a less good experience. We'll have to see. I remain hopeful. Obviously, yeah, they cut a lot of content out of WoD. That wasn't ideal. But from a raider's point of view, you don't notice that. Because at the end of the day, you know, there was solid progress to be made until the last raid. The fact that there were no new dungeons, alright, that's disappointing. But that's not the primary reason I play the game. The fact that there wasn't any, you know, what you would call content coming out in the patches, again, disappointing. I liked the selfie camera though. That was nice. Having to bench followers. No, I like the followers in WoD. I like going around finding them. That was good. I enjoyed that. It broke up them, and once you'd been, especially once you were leveling up for the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, and so on time, it broke up the monotony, going around in a different order, finding different followers, that sort of thing. The challenge mode dungeons are fun. Well, see, I wasn't keen on those. They would have been fun if you do them early enough. But I could never get a group early enough. Not that I tried super hard, but still. The only cutting edge you don't have is Archimonde. Yeah, HFC was a nice raid, I thought. It was quite nice. It had a nice pacing to it as well. Arguably, what's his face? After Gorefiend. Oh, shit. The Eredar fella. Who didn't used to be an Eredar. Used to be a Draenei and then was made into an Eredar. In the actual levelling experience. But him, in the machine thing, he was a bit too easy. Not Iskar, no. Although Iskar was one of the bosses you could have done after Socrathar. That's it, yes. So Socrathar I thought was a bit too easy. And although it was nice to, like, because you built up, you know, you did the bosses, they got a bit harder, Gorefiend, bit of a roadblock. Then you got over that. And then Socrathar and Iskar were a bit too easy because you bowled them over too quickly. Now, it was nice to have a bit of a dip before you built back up to, say, Manaroth. But I think they were a bit... I think Socrathar... I think Iskar was okay, even though that was also fairly straightforward. But Socrathar was just too easy. You wish farming the raids would become increasingly easier through the weeks. Well, of course it is supposed to be. If people do things the right way, then it becomes easier each week. But yes, you know, if people insist on being boneheads, then yes, it doesn't. Iskar was really easy after Gorefiend. And it was easy because, you know, I mean, I missed the Gorefiend progress because I went on holiday for a week. But I was in on as soon as they killed it. And they did Socrathar and Iskar on the same night. So it's like 1 week to kill Gorefiend, 1 night to kill the next 2. So straight away that was a bit too easy pace. But I think the bigger problem was Socrathar rather than Iskar. I think Iskar... I'm not saying they couldn't have made it a bit harder, but I think Socrathar definitely should have been. When in WoD you could kill a boss in 20 seconds with 18 Arcane Mages. Yeah, well that was just your memeing at the end of an expansion. People may well do something similar. Nah, I don't think it'd be quite that bad, mind you. There was something similar in MoP as well, with loads of people killing, what was it, those twin Dark Shaman, I can't remember the names of them now, in Siege of Orgrimmar super quickly. Best part about Pharmacy and how many more barriers you can carry. Well, for quite a while now, it's quite a while till I've joined the guild I'm in. That bias has even been a thing. I've not been in a guild for some time. Well, not this whole expansion, in fact, where you've boosted people. I mean, I suppose, to be fair, the guild I just left, the realm probably wasn't big enough. Corcoran. Oh, yeah, maybe. But yes, but no, I mean, those, you know, my experiences of MoP and WoD were much better than Legion. Even though I know that for the majority of people, Legion would have been a better expansion. But not for me. And BFA may not be either. Although hopefully it'll be more pleasant than Legion was. Even though I'm going to have to do it on the rubbish. See, this is a thing. I need to do a video about this just to shut everyone up. Basically, going on about how Horde is better. Because, right, if you're Alliance and you go to the main city in Alliance, Borrowless, or for the new content, everything is within a relatively small space, okay? You've got your profession trainers, you've got your mission table, you've got your access to the opposite faction continent, you know, you've got your portals, your bank, all that sort of stuff, all in a relatively small area, and in the open air, so you can mount as well. Horde, right, you've got to take a flight between, say, where the bank is, just as an example, or, you know, where the rested area is, and where the profession trainers are, and that's still a ride away from where the mission table and all the rest of it is. You know, the sheer amount of area you've got to cover. If you had to go round all those things to do, you know, to reel off, oh, quickly, let's just sort my missions out, then I need to, you know, go and get something from the profession vendors. It just take you forever. You like the Alliance architecture? Well, the Horde architecture consists of steps. Everything in the Horde capital is basically just a series of steps. So, you know, you sort of feel that instead of a necklace, that Azeroth should have gifted us with a Fitbit. That's what Horde players need. Do I think Blizzard needs to start merging more servers? I think they need to abolish, well, not servers, obviously, but they need to abolish realms. They're not going to, though, because it's too much money for transfers. But they should just abolish realms, quite frankly. Horde makes up with it with sheer beauty of the city. absolute nonsense. You can goblin glide off the top to wherever you want. Yes, but that still takes time. Obviously, my Hearthstone will have to be bound there because we don't get a special Hearthstone this expansion either. No special Hearthstone like the last two expansions. They've decided, you know, that we've got enough, which, to be fair, we probably have. Well, it means I'm also going to have to make sure I've got an engineer so I can craft them myself quite easily. Couldn't they have flown the 4th iteration of Dalaran in BFA somewhere? There's no reason for Dalaran to move here because there isn't a global threat. I mean, there sort of is, but none that needs Dalaran to be there. Because, I mean, the reason technically that Dalaran was moved to the Broken Shore wasn't, as far as I remember from the storyline, as a base of operations as such. It was because they were being attacked. It was to avoid having the shit blown out of them. Obviously, when deciding to disappear, they then decided to move it to the Broken Shore as a point of a base of operation. But the original, you know... well, I mean, Jane have moved it, first of all, to Eastern Kingdoms because she was basically being all anti-Horde, wasn't she? It's like they designed Borrowless under the assumption that the only people who appreciate it would be the non-raiders spending their time actually sitting in town. Yes, very good. The gliders are going to be insanely expensive on the Horde side. Until we get flying. The mats still come from WoD. Yeah, but that's fine. I've got garrisons for that. You said in the raiding feedback thread, the group size complaints are actually recruited and realm population complaints. Well, they are. I mean, you know, when you think back to Vanilla, where it was 40-man raiding, even guilds that were way behind on progress had no issue recruiting people. Because apart from anything else, I mean, there was another side of it, admittedly, which is that you didn't need all 40 to have a brain in the red. You know, it was quite possible to tell about half of them, stand there, press that. And as long as they did that, you know, if this thing happens, if we say your name, go from standing there to standing there. You know, like bomb or something like that. And if they could manage that, and some of them couldn't even manage that. You know, I mean, I was in a reasonably well progressed guild, and there were some players in the guild couldn't even bloody well manage that. What about Dalaran status in BFA? It's the Broken Shore still. I don't know that they've thought about it. See, Blizzard don't tie up loose ends. They don't do that. Once an expansion's finished, that's it. It's finished. If they decide they need Dalaran at some point in the future, then they'll move it. But at the moment, Dalaran has got nothing to do with the BFA content or the story, so it's just forgotten about. Similar to any characters that are in there. Any characters that are not needed for BFA, forget about them. You know. I mean, I'll tell you what, I was surprised in here that there's a passage involving the Netherlight Temple, because I thought that with their storyline being all-out war, well, I know that's not the main storyline of the expansion, but it is one of the storylines of the expansion about all-out war between the Horde and the Alliance. That's totally at odds with the concept of order halls, and yet there's an order hall prominently featuring in this story. So no one forces people to be on low pot realms. They sort of do. They actually do. Because if you're a new player and you're creating your first character, Blizzard suggest realms. The realms they suggest are not high population realms. They're the little shitty ones that they need to bulk the numbers up. So then you get into the game, half a year or a year later, you get to the point where you go, do you know what, I'd like to join a raiding guild. That's when you find out there aren't any on your server. And that's when you get shoved with a 50 quid bill to move if you have to change faction as well. So it's like, okay, yeah, you can just move to this higher population realm. God, can't speak. It'll only cost you half a year's worth of subscription for each character, because you also chose to play Alliance. It's the only order hall that deals explicitly with the Void. Well, yes, but the whole point of it is that it's Horde and Alliance working together, which will not impress Sylvanas. But as I say, I've only read a quarter of it so far. I can't wait to see what she thinks of that idea. Well, Warlocks also do deal in the Void as well. It's not just Fel, because they summon Void Walkers and they cast Shadow Magic, which is, of course, pure Void. Absence of light completely. So, no, Warlocks are into that too. It's just, I suppose, priests have that thing between Holy and Shadow. So they're always one extreme or the other. Whereas Warlocks, some Shadow, some mix. No light. Priests, it's light or it's Shadow. Shadow and Void are not different though, Brett. Again, don't matter what you know. Blizzard have made the Warcraft Chronicles. There's so many things, like the very first content page in Warcraft Chronicles #1 has it laid bare, and then there's some writing on the next page as well that makes it totally clear, unambiguous. Shadow and Void are exactly the same thing. They are interchangeable. Oh, you're different on YouTube, of course. I don't know who anyone is. Hang on, I'm missing things again. It seems like communities are essentially guilds without realm limitations. Well, I mean, yeah, hopefully these community things can take the place of guilds for the people who just refuse to join guilds. That would be lovely. Whether it happens, we'll just have to wait and see. Because I think it's absolutely insane. People like the concept of pugging is anathema to an MMO. You know, it should be a last resort. You know, you are a complete Billy No Mates, and it's the only way you can do anything in the game is to pug. But I mean, even let's say Elder Scrolls Online, I was talking about, because I don't play it every week, I'm sort of not wanting to do this. But if I get myself into a position where I think I can play it at least once a week, I will absolutely look to join a guild, even though I only want to play it, you know. Shit, I've lost the thing. Irregularly. Oh my god, what have I done with it? Chat viewer. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Okay. If you're a new player, are you really concerned with Mythic Raiding? No. But a year later, you won't be a new player, and you might want to do that. Are you playing Rift as you watch this? You can freely move between realms by clicking your toon portrait and choose. Well, you know, like Elder Scrolls Online, they have their mega servers. So, you know, you're all sort of sharded effectively. But if you join a group with someone, you'll end up in the same thing. Same shard, or what? I don't know what they call it. But it'll put you together, basically. Yeah, but you can't say because Chronicle 1 has been contradicted a little bit that everything in Chronicle 1 is wrong. You know, if it hasn't been specifically contradicted, then it still has to be accepted because Blizzard said that's the case. And nowhere has there been an official word that Void and Shadow are different. So Warcraft Chronicle takes precedence, and they're the same. And they always were the same. I never really saw... There's no difference between them. Anyway, there's not supposed to have. I don't think even in the past. Even when they didn't really know what it all was. I don't think it was supposed to be different. Are they leaving a key system in for Legion Mythic Plus? Push up to plus 50 keys. I don't... Wasn't there a post about that? No, there wasn't. Or was it? No, that was about Mythic Raiding. I don't know. I mean, I know that they had one mad idea. I know they were only playing about with this and they're not going to do it. But they had this crazy idea at the start. This was early on in Legion, where they were saying maybe at the end, right at the end of the expansion, excuse me, maybe they'd let us wear our Legion legendaries without any number requirements. In other words, if you've got a slot free and you've got legendary for it, you can wear it. Obviously, they decided against that. They probably decided it would be too much of a piss take for leveling. Yeah, but anyway, they're not. Warcraft Chronicles, they're the same. The Void, it's like the Void is just what we call the sentience behind Shadow. Everything in the Warcraft universe is now officially, it's either light or holy, or it's shadow, or in most cases, it's some combination of the two. Those are the two fundamental forces in the Warcraft universe. Blizzard retcons are the worst. Of course they are, because they don't care about their own story. I've never known anything like it. You know, it's the sort of ransacking of a storyline that you expect of filmmakers who get the rights to do something and then monkey about with it. That's what you the sort of people that created the Sylvester Stallone version of Judge Dredd. That's what you expect. You don't expect the same company who developed the storyline to shit on their own storyline and keep changing it. Death is a combination of the two. Death magic is a specific type of magic, which is, in its position on the cosmic table, more shadow than light, but it is a combination of shadow and light. Again, that's mentioned. She is our representation of death at the moment, but death is a combination of shadow and light, just like everything else. Just like life is a combination of shadow and light. Life magic is a combination of shadow and light. It's just nearer the light side. So you could argue, although Blizzard haven't explicitly stated this, that it is more light than shadow, just in the same way that death is more shadow than light. And Warcraft 3 Arthur. To be fair, though, with Arthur's killing Illidan, we saw him bleeding. It was sort of understood he was supposed to be dead, but they very, very quickly changed that. Like, it's not something that was only changed when World of Warcraft came out. It was changed basically at the time. They got a load of feedback and they changed it pretty much straight away, basically. So, you know, the Illidan thing was more that it was their intention to kill Illidan, but there was such an outcry as soon as people found out that it was basically changed, I think, before it even came out. I don't remember exactly, but it was certainly changed. We knew he was alive when it came to World of Warcraft. Do I think Mythic Raiding is too exclusive? It has to be fixed size. They cannot make Mythic Raiding flex. It's not possible. Because there's always an optimal number to take. There's so it's not possible. You know, there's an optimal number when it comes to heroic and normal as well. It's just that the people that will optimize it can do it super easily, even just by taking 30, so they don't care about optimizing it. But Mythic is sufficiently difficult. You will take the exact right number that makes it easy for you. And sometimes that will be quite a lot of people, and sometimes that will be hardly any people. And what that means is those guilds will basically need a 2-tier raid structure. They're going to have the core raiders that will always be in, and then you're going to have raiders who are basically accepting they're on the bench until they get to a fight where loads are needed. Arthas wasn't a bad guy. He was corrupted. You know, people seem to fail to realise that he did all his bad stuff after already being corrupted. It's just the corruption took some time. It wasn't like a turning a light switch on. It happened over a period of time. Even his culling of Strathome, you know, when Jaina turned away, you know, he wasn't, you know, he paused there. So he wasn't at all like someone was trying to say in some comments on my video actually about Arthas being more ruthless than Sylvanas. He wasn't. Sylvanas has never at any point in Warcraft 3 or World of Warcraft ever really paused at all. When she wanted to do something, she has never hesitated. Whereas Arthas did. Obviously, once he became the Lich King, it was a different matter. Yeah, the 10 and 25 man was ridiculous. It was always too easy on one mode or the other. So basically, all you'd end up with is 3 versions of heroic raiding, because normally in heroic are already the same thing. I know you've got an extra layer of mechanics in heroic, but they're not any more difficult. It's just effectively the only difference I notice between heroic and normal is the bosses have a bigger health pool and do more damage, and that's it. And that's all you'd end up with mythic. So you'd have 3 versions of exactly the same raid. And now they send Illidan far away to not fight against Sylvanas. Oh yeah, he's gone. He's trapped himself, hasn't he? Along with Sargeras. Looking actually in the video like he wanted to beat him up. No, he's still, you know, I mean, he did the thing where he talks to... The only reason he's ever been pissed off with Malfurion is because, well, first of all, he thinks he doesn't act decisively enough. And secondly, because he won Tyrande. But, you know, he was always very nice to his brother in, you know, in certain respects. He was a damn sight nicer to Malfurion than Malfurion was to him. Put it that way. Malfurion's a complete ingrate. Because that was the thing about retconning Illidan for Legion. They didn't really even have to. There was no need to retcon him, because all the stuff he did up to escaping to Outland, he did for pretty good motives. You know, everyone was pissed off with him, but he actually achieved his missions and he did it for the right reasons. The only thing they ended up having to retcon was the fact that the real story was that he was shit scared of the Legion. He was shit scared of Kil'jaeden, and wanted to hide away from him when he failed. And then they changed it so that, oh no, he wasn't hiding. He was on a secret mission to come up with something to destroy the Legion. Well, that was absolute codswallop. They easily didn't need to do that at all. They could have just had him, you know, broken out by Gul'dan in the same way. And we rescue him. And he was always on our side anyway, sort of, so to speak, as long as we would let him. So they just retconned it for no reason. What's Khadgar up to now? I'm not sure. Did I see him? I mean, well, the last place we've seen him is in Silithus, of course. I don't think he's really featured in BFA. I think it's a good thing that he doesn't feature in BFA, because I worry that for people who started raiding or started playing in WoD, that they see Khadgar as this neutral link between the Horde and the one that can talk to both Horde and Alliance, whereas he's not really. He's an Alliance character, you know. He's just not super anti-Horde, and therefore made a suitable person to be the go-between in WoD. And obviously Legion, he's got the link with Karazhan. He's a powerful mage, so it sort of made sense to maintain that link in Legion as well. But I don't know that Khadgar is super pro-Horde. He would rather have peace than war, that's all. He's still very much Alliance. Thrall has got some work to do to get his reputation back after the complete rolling over he did in Legion. Letting some scrub enhancement shaman nick his hammer. And then have the gall to say, as soon as I picked it up, that I was far better with it than he ever was. That's not even beta male, that's like delta male. That's pathetic. But the only like real crumb of comfort with being Horde now is that I will at least get to see when Thrall does come in with those, because I'm really curious about Vol'jin. I want to know what the hell the lower spirits told Vol'jin to make Sylvanas war chief. I want to know that. What do you mean caring about wolves? When did I say I cared about wolves? I didn't mention wolves. When did I mention wolves? Khadgar said he was going back to Karazhan to consult with Medivh. Well, there you go then. He's gone into a drafty old tower. Oh, I don't know about that. So the main go-between now is Magni, who is also Alliance. You notice, and this again, to all those people who just think, the Horde are misunderstood. How is it then that when we need a go-between between the Horde and Alliance, it's always an Alliance character? Because they're fundamentally more peaceful. It's not to say all of the members of the Alliance are peaceful. Obviously, again, Greymane would like nothing better than a war to start up there. But as it makes clear here, I like reading this bit. Where is it now? As Alliance and Horde forces race to uncover the secrets of Azeroth and heal the wounded world, Anduin enacts a desperate plan aimed at forging a lasting peace between the factions. Azeroth jeopardizes the balance of power, and so Anduin must gain the trust of Sylvanas. But the Dark Lady ever has her own machinations. No, it's not because the Alliance players would cry Horde favouritism. Apart from anything else, as we've already established, there is a rapidly diminishing number of Alliance players. In fact, in a couple of years' time, Blizzard could have the Horde completely ruffle-stomp Stormwind. Stormwind no longer exists, and most players wouldn't even notice because there won't be enough of them. So no, nothing to do with that. I mean, people were crying Horde favouritism. Blizzard could do no right in that anyway. People were crying Horde favouritism based on the relative levelling of Horde and Alliance in BFA. And quite frankly, the Alliance experience is way better. Loads better. I noticed this weird balance. Horde gets nice cities like Suramar or Zandalar. Well, Zandalar's not... Zuldazar is what I think you mean, is the city. But okay. Alliance gets more notable characters. No, Alliance gets the better cities too. Borrelus is way better than Zuldazar. Suramar is pretty. Oh, that was a point. Yeah, there's a great line in here. Where is it? Shit, I'm not going to be able to find it now. Because the Horde don't even appreciate it. And there's a great line in here. If only I could find it. Hold on. One of the goblins. Bugger. Oh, here it is. So this is a goblin. He's saying... he's basically complaining about all the Horde race. I might as well read the whole paragraph. It says, and all those other races in the Horde, they just didn't seem to understand the goblin mentality. The Deaders, as he thought of the Forsaken, gave him the creeps, and the only thing they seemed to enjoy tinkering with was poisons. The Orcs thought they were better than everyone else, original Horde and all that claptrap. The Tauren were too in love with the land to make any reasonable person comfortable, and the whole thing the Trolls had going on with the Lower scared the crap out of him. Pandaren were just too, well, nice. He'd met a blood elf or two he could share a beer with, but the race as a whole was way too pretty, and they liked pretty things. And goblins and their culture most definitely did not qualify as pretty things. And the same could be said of basically all the Horde. The elves are just too pretty. In fact, the only reason that blood elves were given to the Horde in the first place, because it made no sense at the time story-wise, was because the Horde were fundamentally plain and ugly. You know. So they needed pretty boys to join them. I mean, Horde has its notable characters. You know, I would argue that Sylvanas is by far and away the most interesting character there has ever been in World of Warcraft. However, it could also be argued that the reason for that is her longevity. You know, she first of all emerged during Warcraft 3, which was the most fertile storytelling period of the whole Warcraft history. She survived through that. She survived all the way through World of Warcraft and played a part, a major part, in some of the most notable quest lines and storylines in the game. So you could argue she's had a lot of people fleshing out her character. But nonetheless, she is clearly the most notable character in the game, living or past, you know, past or future. Your troll is beautiful. Female trolls can, you know, they have a sort of, but they're still pretty. They've got tusks. You know, there's no getting away from the fact they've got tusks coming out of their mouth. Okay, that must pose a problem when trying to get intimate. So, you know, I mean, Pandaren are pretty. But, you know, Pandaren female, of course. You can despise Sylvanas, that's fine. You know, she is thoroughly wicked. But she is still, you know, the most interesting characters. But Alliance, yeah, by and large, do tend to get more of them. For whatever reason. I think possibly because the Horde keep killing theirs off before they can get interesting. You know, because as someone pointed out in here tonight, Sylvanas is the only remaining leader of the original Horde factions from the start of World of Warcraft. You know, I mean, okay, Thrall's still alive, but he's no leader anymore. But the orc that took over his position is dead. The leader of the Tauren is dead. The leader of the Trolls is dead. Sylvanas reminds you of Dorian Gray. Well, fortunately, I've neither read nor seen any of that, so that's your middle-class mummy porn. Not interested in that. Nightborn or Blood Elf saying for the Horde. Well, Void Elves is sort of okay, because Void Elves were part of the Alliance. That's all perfectly fine. And Draenei are obviously going to fit the Alliance more than the Horde, based on the fact, remember, that they were hunted by the Orc Horde on Draenor. So they were hardly likely to want to join the Horde. Even if their ideals didn't exactly tie in with the Alliance, but fortunately they did. But yeah, there was no way they could have joined the Horde. Because that's their, you know, their enemies. But Nightborn, I mean, obviously they came up with some reason for them joining the Horde rather than the Alliance. But it's always a bit weird because you think to yourself, you know, Nightborn joined the Horde because, oh, you helped us. And I'm thinking, hang on a minute. I think you'll find I'm the one who, like, freed Suramar from the Legion. That's a bit ungrateful, isn't it? Killing Vol'jin was done. Well, we'll have to see what their reasons are. I am giving them the benefit of the doubt for the following expansion to see if they explain themselves. But if ultimately what it is obviously with Legion they were already planning the following. They say they plan about 6 years in advance in terms of story arcs, obviously not fleshed out. So obviously when they were doing that, they already knew that the next expansion wanted to be a battle royale between the factions. Now, given that, and given that they knew they were going to kill Varian off, there's no way that a Horde led by Vol'jin and an Alliance led by Anduin would go to all-out war. You need a warmonger in charge of one of the factions. So Vol'jin and Anduin don't fit the bill. So obviously they had to change one of them. And the only one they could change was the Horde. So that I think that's just why they did it. Now, of course, it may be that they decided it for those reasons and therefore had to think of some quick reason. Yeah, there's some comments appearing here, which I'm afraid won't appear because they've flagged up. I'm not showing them. You can't use that language. But anyway, so you'll have to clean it up before you can post it again. So I'm just going to get rid of those. The High Mountain Tauren joining the Horde I'm okay with, even though it's still a bit ungrateful because, you know, I helped those guys out. But I also understand they've got a natural kinship with the Tauren. Whereas the Nightborn elves, all right, you can argue they've got some kinship with the Blood Elves. But equally, with the Night Elves, surely. I mean, more with the, you know, I don't see why it would be significantly more with the Blood Elves than the Night Elves. You know, maybe a shade nearer them. Is there any new Worgen lore in BFA? Not that I've seen. In fact, the race that's most prominent is the Darkine Dwarves, of course, because they're going to be an allied race. So they pop up a bit. I haven't really seen much on Worgen in BFA. Obviously, you've got your Kulturan Druids. But I don't, you know, that doesn't seem to run along the same sort of lines. Nightborn joined Horde because Tyrande was a, yes, expletive. Very possibly, yeah. I don't know how people can put up with Tyrande. In fact, the only reason I think Malfurion puts up with her is because I think his brain's rotted after all those years sleeping in the Emerald Dream. So... But she is a complete cow. Whereas, yeah, Liadrin is a much more welcoming person, possibly. You feel as though they just abandoned Worgen as soon as they created them. Yeah, of course they did. They needed a new race. They created Worgen. Right? No, the Worgen was already in. They just came up with some storyline which allowed for sentient, intelligent Worgen to join the Alliance. And as soon as that had been done, mission accomplished, drop it. That's what they do. They don't carry things on. They write a story to achieve a purpose. And once that purpose is achieved, that's it. It's finished. Over. Done with. Finito. Done. But anyway, we've come to the end of this one. We've gone a little bit over again. You really want to see the Kulturan Boomkin form. I reckon it'll look like a scarecrow. One of those like wicker things. But anyway, we've come to the end, yes. So thanks for coming on, everyone. I'll be back on again, obviously, next Tuesday with this live. This should be going up onto YouTube quite soon. It won't go up immediately. I have to do thumbnails and stuff like that. So thanks for coming on, everyone. And until next time, I'll see you later.